to start. Welcome everybody to 52 Living Ideas. Tonight we'll be covering the Analects. We'll be continuing book 15, starting with chapter 19. We can have 1 to 2 readings, and then we'll go to Jason's translation, after which we will open it up for commentary. We ask that everyone keep their commentary specific to the chapter that we're speaking about. And then we will open it up for a more wide-ranging discussion in the last 30, 40 minutes. So with that, would anybody like to read their version of the Analects?
I can read the Eno.
Please do. Thank you.
Do we start now?
Go right ahead.
Okay, 15.19, I think so.
Right.
Okay, so 15.19. The master said, the Junzi blames himself for lacking ability. He does not blame others for not recognizing him. 15.20. The master said, the Junzi is apprehensive that he may leave the world without his name remaining praised there.
Let's read 2 more to 22.
Okay, 15.21. The master said, the Junzi seeks it in himself. The small man seeks it in others. 15.22, the master said, the Junzi bears himself with dignity but does not contend. He joins with others but does not become a partisan.
Thank you, Juan. Would anybody else like to read their version? If not, I can go ahead and read.
I can read, but my I think my video doesn't work, but you can hear me?
I can hear you just fine. So yeah, go right ahead.
Okay, so from 1519?
Yes,
1519 to 22.
Okay, the master said the nobleman suffers from his own lack of ability, not from lack of recognition. 1520, the master said the nobleman is concerned about the kind of reputation he will have after he pass away. 1521, the master said the nobleman seeks winning himself, the inferior man seeks winning others. 1522, the master said the nobleman is firm in his positions, but does not wrangle. He readily makes friends, but doesn't belong to a group.
Thank you, Joy.
Jason, would you like me to read?
Yes, please.
All right, you're sharing. Let me escape here and read from mine. There we go. 1519, the master said, a junzi blames himself for lack of abilities. He doesn't blame others for not recognizing him. 1520, the master said, a junzi hates leaving this world without a praiseworthy name. 1521, the master said, a junzi demands of themselves. A small man demands of others. 1522, the master said, a junzi is reserved, not contentious. He is sociable, not partisan.
Okay, thank you, Amon. All these are very short. You can notice from 18, all talking about Junzi until 24, 23, all talk about Junzi. Okay, but today, right now, let's focus on 19, 20, 21, and 22. Okay, because let's all try to define what's the meaning of Junzi. So 19 talk about, I think 19 is very common, right? So the Junzi blame himself for, there's a few words I'd like to bring up. First, Confucius talk about blamed himself. The Chinese word called Peng. I decided to translate as blame. He blamed himself for lack of ability, but he doesn't blame others for not recognizing him. Same thing on book 14. He talked about another word called huan. I will translate as worry. So don't worry about people not recognizing you. Worry about you are not able to do it. So basics are talk about the same thing compared with book 14. And then 15, same thing. Confucius used another word called ji. Okay, so I decided to translate it as hate. It's there. You can say all these words are the same. Worry, blame, or hate are the same thing, but that's different, slightly different in Chinese. I think ji, hate, is more strong. Worry is lighter. Okay, so that's my understanding. That's why I decided to translate as worry, blame, and hate. You can see chapter 20. The master said, "A 君子 hate leaving this world." That means he died without a praiseworthy name. Okay, so that's I think this concept is quite important in Chinese scholarly tradition, because since Chinese doesn't have a Western kind of concept of soul, so what are you working? What you want to live after you die could be the name. So the name become more important since there's no concept of soul. That's my understanding. That's why I just do see Confucius or nothing care about the name or reputation. Chapter 21. Okay, so this one I like focus on is that's I call it the Confucius logic. Okay, so Confucius like to compare, right? One way to explain is 君子 and 小人, which it translates as small man. So we should understand small man not necessarily a bad man. Small man is just not 君子, a common name, a common people. Okay, not become 君子 yet. Okay. So here Confucius said, 君子 demands of himself, a small man demands of others. So I remember Eno's translation talk about seek it from others, seek it. So we don't know what it means, right? Because in Chinese text, it doesn't have this demand of what. Okay, so I just have leave this one as ambiguity. So you can, so I have to, my understanding of demand of self means cultivate yourself. Just like Confucius told Yan Hui, you want to pursue Ren, you start from yourself. And what does Confucius mean? Demand of others. That means he is looking for have name out to others. Or you can say he asks others to accommodate you. Okay, so I think that's the difference. But again, the Chinese text has no that doesn't indicate, you know, what Confucius mean, what demand for. 22. A 君子 is reserved, not contentious. He is sociable, not partisan. I think that's important because you can compare the way Confucius talking about good thing is reserved and the social. They all good things. But when you reserve, you don't be contentious. When you are social, you don't be partisan. Okay, I think that's Confucius 1 to 12. So two good things, reserve and the social. But when you reserve, don't be contentious. Okay, when you are social, don't be partisan. I think that's Confucius want to say. Thank you, and Amon, please.
Yeah, this section 18 through 23 really is the formula for junsa, and it brought me back to old dojo days and something one of my former instructors said. The quote I'm paraphrasing was something to the effect of, you have to become your own silent whip. That is a phrase that rattled around in my head for years and years and years. What does it mean to be your own silent whip? Well, to be your own whip is very obvious. You're going to demand a great deal of yourself, and you're going to whip yourself into action. You're your own taskmaster to make sure that you are constantly working, constantly on it, constantly trying to be more capable or able to do the things that you're attempting to do. But a silent whip, in that you don't make a show of it. You don't go into the gym and grunt with every rep you do, because that's just putting on airs. That's simply trying to show other people how hard you're tasking yourself, how hard you're pushing yourself. You need to be reserved. You need to be humble about what you're doing. It's not being done for the sake of others' observance. It's being done for your own betterment. I think all of these kind of are where that idea really gets its roots of becoming your own silent whip. I don't know that my old instructor ever read Confucius, but Confucian ideas passed through the zeitgeist for millennia to his mouth or to his lips, and from his lips to my ears. And reading through this, I'm seeing all of that sort of ingredients for that recipe to come to fruition. So yeah, I do think that that Confucius would approve of the idea that a junsa is becoming good at being their own silent whip.
Thank you, Amon. So now we will open it up for comments if anybody has them. For verses 19 through 22. Go ahead, Allison.
Yeah, what you were just saying, Amon, I have a friend who's Italian. She said that in Italy, they have this idea that whatever you do on New Year's Day, you're going to do that the whole year long. And I have a ballet teacher who was talking about that one day, and she said that she thought it was the dumbest thing ever, because she said people who actually, so she says, you see all these people trying to exercise on New Year's Day because they think that means they'll do it all year long. And she said, everybody that actually exercises as a normal part of their life, she's like, they're just sleeping in on New Year's Day morning, She's like, you don't feel like you have to prove it to anybody. You're just that's just what you're gonna do all year long. And then also you see people on, Facebook or Instagram, like, I'm at the gym, like nobody cares. Like, either go to the gym or don't. We don't care. It's just funny. Yeah. So I like that one.
Curious, does anyone see in number 21 the idea of how justice might fit into that? If anybody wants to comment, I have my thoughts, but Juan,
the way that Joseph is, and I appreciate what Jason said about how it doesn't specify what is actually being sought within oneself, but if it's goodness, it could be anything. It could be goodness, it could be justice, and the lower person seeks that in others because he's not he's not reflecting on his own. He just wants to judge others without taking responsibility for himself, perhaps.
Distinguish between goodness and justice.
So thank you, Mark, to talk about judgment, and we will talk about judgment in next few chapter. But before go to Kwang, I'm curious what Joe you think about the justice.
With this, with number
21, you talk about related.
yeah, when the superior man seeks in himself, what the mean man seeks is in others. Yeah, I think that justice is how we interact with one another, and ultimately how we interact with one another is something that we can ultimately control ourselves, and we can be fair with others, which actually improves the ability to relate with other people, I think, in this, and when we're talking about this particular passage. And when I think about it also, or actually even more so, this even comes back up in 22, but 21 mostly, is that I look at it from a perspective of a person that looks introspectively at how they're treating other people, thinks about what is fair and what is just. And a person that is looking to others for their solutions is not necessarily looking for what is fair or what is just. They're looking for what they're getting out of something. So that's the distinction that I like to make. So I'll provide a practical example that I think will serve as a way of understanding this. Is that I had spoken to somebody who had just gotten, their relationship had just ended, and the whole time they're telling me about what they did not receive out of the relationship the entire time. And that's fine, but what he wasn't telling me is what he could have done differently, and how he could have, essentially, which is in his control, if you're going to take it from a Stoic perspective. And if you take the Stoic perspective, the idea of justice is love for mankind and how we interact with others, then he would be looking to establish balance within the relationship and thinking about what he could do in order to facilitate a good relationship, as opposed to looking as to outside as to what he's getting out of something. So somebody that's looking at what they're getting out of something isn't necessarily practicing the idea, I think, of establishing a balanced relationship, which I kind of look at as fairness and justice. I don't know if that clears up anything.
So,
well, it's a really amazing story, Joseph. And I think what you're also demonstrating is that 21 might be infinite possible interpretations. It might be one of those statements in the Analects that admits of so many interpretations that we could probably spend an entire evening.
I think the fundamental here is looking inwards to act out. That's fundamental. And ultimately, the way I looked at it is how one looks inward, looked act out, as opposed to someone that looks for, as they said, what did he say? Exactly, is what the mean man seeks is in others. In other words, what others will provide for him. So I think that, somebody's looking for externally to be served, as opposed to looking to internally what they can do to serve. So that would be my distinction overall. And then the first thing that comes to my mind is, how do you establish balance within relationships? And that's where I think the virtue of justice fits into that particular, in that particular sense. But you're right, there are other virtues or things that can be seen as to how, what it means to act out. But ultimately, it's about acting, looking in for introspection as opposed to looking external for answers.
I agree. And one of the things that makes it more difficult for me is thinking about 20th century psychiatry, or maybe we could say psychoanalysis, and people like Lacan who argue that our desire is the desire of the other. It's very hard to disentangle what we need, want, and want to develop in ourselves without being formed through the expectations of others as we grow up and mature from childhood.
And just one last thing, as I would just say, number 22 kind of had me thinking around this as well, is that how to be essentially the superior man's like kind of respectful and sociable, whereas and essentially tries to overcome bias. So as the master said, the superior man dignified but does not wrangle. He is sociable but not partisan, meaning partisan is that means he's not biased. And to me, a lot of times ethics is about overcoming your bias. So like that too is another way of looking at it from a justice perspective as well. So that's why I see a theme between these two that are closely knit. That's my thought. I mean, when I look at least 21 and 22, I saw them as very closely being linked to one another. It's and ultimately this is about balance in relationships as well. When you're talking about like the social aspect of these of both of these chapters. Anyway,
let's go to Peng and Edison.
Yes, I think that those 5 from 15.19 to 15.23, even if we did not read 15.23, I think it's part of a unit because it's all about the Junzi, the gentleman. And that is precisely, I would agree, I think it was Mark to say that is the center of all the Analects, okay? Because it is about education in the etymologic meaning of education, educare, to bring forth what is from within. To bring forth what is from within, beauty, goodness, and truth, the 3 timeless 4, if I use Plato's word, or if I use Confucius' word, it's about ran, it's about chu, and it's about ran chu, to use the right order. It doesn't mean that we don't need others, but here is a radical invitation to personal sovereignty. The small man will seek it in others, either justice would correspond to the timeless form of beauty, or valor and humanity, which correspond to the timeless form of goodness or ran, or wisdom would correspond to the timeless form of truth. So here, once again, I repeat, it's the radical invitation to be perfectly sovereign. It doesn't mean that it can be accomplished in one day, of course, but it means that we interact with others. And if you see 15.21 is at the center of 19 and 20 that we can see on the left side, and 22 and 23 that we can see on the right side if you want, okay? So the upper trigram here is at the center, and he gives four practical situations of the lower trigram. The first one, in interacting with others, he will not blame others for not being recognized, but being simply that he is not capable enough, that he is impressive, that he may leave the world without his name remaining praised there, and that he bears himself with dignity but does not content. Once again, he seeks it in himself and not in others. He won't participate in a group. He won't say what he has to say, but he does not, his inner power is not fed by the reaction of the group, but by what is inside him. So the group can react positively, neutrally, or negatively, but that is what is inside him that will push him to say what he has to say. To take that example, it could be a lot of other things, of course. And the last one that we did not read, so I will not make a comment on that for now. But absolutely, this is the center of all the Analects, the radical invitation to personal sovereignty, and that personal sovereignty can only be live in reality, in existential reality, if the timeless form of beauty, goodness, and truth are activated within the mind of the gentleman. That activation of those three timeless forms make the gentleman. Okay, without it, there is no gentleman. There's a scribe or a magician. Okay, because in the I want to quote here something quite rapidly from the Shi Yi, which is the 10 wings, meaning the epistemological development of the Book of Change, the Yi Ching. In a conversation between Confucius and Zikong, Confucius said that I am on the same road than the magician and the scribe, meaning the intellectual and the manipulator, but I end in another place, and that other place that he ends is precisely that activation of beauty, goodness, and truth within him, and he acts from there and not from being streetwise, okay? Because we already discussed it in another way, being wise or streetwise. So if you activate the three timeless form of beauty, goodness, and truth, and you're really wise, you wouldn't be streetwise, but your inner state will not depend on your skillful manipulation because you're streetwise. Being streetwise is simply the practical consequence of you being wise, which is the priority. I stop here.
So,
Also,
What you were saying about people not taking responsibility is kind of interesting because I've seen statistics where they say that when people get divorced and then get remarried very, very quickly, they have like an astronomically high divorce rate a second time. But people who take a long time before they get remarried have pretty low divorce rates the second time around. And I think it's because they are taking the time to learn from their mistakes. So sometimes people make a bunch of mistakes in one marriage, and then if they jump into the next one, they haven't learned anything, and they're just doing the same thing over again with somebody different. And then the other thing is I saw this really interesting movie the other day, Anatomy of a Fall, and there's kind of this scene between this married couple, and the husband keeps blaming the wife for every mistake, everything that's gone wrong in his life. And she kept saying over and over again, you made this choice, you made that choice. And he didn't want to see that different things in his life were actually things that he had chosen. So it's kind of an interesting thing where, sometimes we don't want to see, you want to think everything's being done to you, but not thinking that, well, I did make this choice, I made that choice, and maybe it didn't go the way I'd wanted it, but I am the one who freely walked into this situation or that situation. So it is kind of interesting. And like kind of at the end of the day, we live in a world surrounded by other people, but we ultimately are responsible for ourselves.
Yeah, and I think that the key part in the person that waits is that they're actually considering the other person. in their contemplation when they look inwards. That's for me, and that's how you establish good relationships, by actually correcting your actions so that you can interact with others better. Jason.
Yeah. Okay. As a translator, I limit myself. I really appreciate everybody is thinking in this one. So all my answer is, I have my thought, but I limit myself the role as a translator. So only thing I talk is related to the text, the original Chinese text. And if I have to go beyond, I only go beyond to the historical background or the logical foundation. What's the logical behind that? So let me respond to two questions, right? First, about justice. My answer is no, okay, because I cannot think any word in Analects is related to justice. I think the only word I can think about is yi, which is righteousness. And I don't see any other word. Doesn't mean that there's no justice, but I just say the word. I don't see. If you find anyone could be closer, please let me know, because I do see that one. That's my first response. Second response about the Joe talked about the 22 partisan. He is social but not a partisan. Okay, and I don't see that's a bias. That means it's not bias. I'm talking about the word. The word Confucius use is 党. Okay, 党, which means small village. So social, 群, that means big group. So Confucius talking about a 君子 should be involved in the big group, but not involved in the small group. So again, if you are a congressman, you join the Congress member, but you don't join the party. That's Confucius word. I'm talking about taking word by word. Okay, doesn't mean that he not talking about bias, but I'm just talking about based on the word point of view. That's I want to make it clear, and as a translator's point of view.
Amon.
I don't want to belabor this because I don't want to go too far out, but I agree with Jason. I don't think the conception of what we mean when we say justice is what is in play in what Confucius is talking about. And Jason's right. The idea of righteousness is a prevalent concept for him. But we have to interrogate our own concepts of justice. Justice for most of us in a Western society is our inalienable rights, as we've come to understand them being protected and supported. So in the West, and particularly in the United States, we have a concept of rights that are natural rights that derive from the state of nature, which is why most of our justice system is, and all of the Constitution is about your rights to be left alone from. You have a right not to have your papers invaded, to not have to quarter soldiers, to not have government tell you these things. They're negative rights, because our idea of rights and a just society is the world stays away from me. I am in a natural state to act. I can swing my arms as much as I want, but that right ends at the tip of your nose. In Western Europe, sovereign rights are really how rights were understood. Your rights were given to you by a king. And because kingdoms rose and fell so regularly within Europe, the idea that you could solicit for more rights is still very prominent within the European mind. Going to China, you didn't have the right to solicit, and you didn't have a conception of natural rights. You had the word of the emperor, and those dynasties changed, but that word was absolute law. And so if you were to engage Confucius in a conversation about what is justice, it's a righteous king making righteous decisions, but his word is law, and that law is justice prevailing, which is why you see occasional consternation from Confucius when he's torn between the orders he's given and what he knows to be the righteous thing. You are supposed to either comport with those orders or retreat from the world if you have no other recourse. But this very conception of justice that we got started on has very different iterations in different mindsets and with very good reason. I'll give Quan the last word on this, and then I'm going to whip us into action, get to the next ones.
Agreed.
As long
I
as
find,
it's
Mark, do you want to finish your sentence?
no, I'm sorry. He said he's going to whip us, but hopefully it'll be a silent whip. Thank you, Amon.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. I think that I must say something very interesting, because in China, political right is top down. Okay, it means that once again I return to my concept of the Chinese mythology of political rights, or the mythology of the Chinese ruling class. What is right has to be stated by the king and by his advisors. So what is beauty, what is truth, what is goodness has to come from what is perceived as the highest people in the given society. And I want to make an example. I want to make a fast comparison. When John Lackland in England in 1215 granted the Bill of Rights to his barons, it was not because he wanted to grant some democratic rights to his barons. It's because he lost a battle the year before in 1214, the Battle of Bouvines, and many of his noblemen lost their lands in southwest France. So his barons cornered him and asked him that you will have to grant us a charter. So the next time that you will go to war, you will have to ask our permission, because we don't want to expose ourselves to lose more of our lands, and some of them lost everything. So here, I want to say that what is perceived as different Anglo-Saxon roots of rights is not very different from the Chinese perspective, in the sense that the king is the source of all beauty, goodness, and truth, and the advisors or the noblemen around him were capable to put some restraints on it, and from there it would trickle down, to use a popular expression, to the lower classes. So I stop here for my social comparison of the Anglo-Saxon world and the Chinese world in terms of beauty, goodness, and truth.
Thank you, Quan. If not, we'll go to now 23, 24, and 25. Yeah. Would anybody like to read their version?
Peng, you want to read it?
15.23. The master said, the Junzi does not raise up a man because of his words, and does not discard words because of the man. 15.24, Zikong asked, is there a single saying that one may put into practice on one's life? The master said, that would be reciprocity. That which you do not desire, do not do to others. 15.25, the master said, in my appraisals of people, whom do I disparage? Whom do I praise? If I praise a man, it is always on the basis of evidence. They are the people who guided the three eras to walk along the straight down. 15.26, the master said, just 25?
No, yeah, just 25.
Okay.
I can read the version that Joy was reading, I believe. 23. The master said, the superior man does not promote a man simply on account of his words, nor does he put aside good words because of the man. 24. Zigong asked, saying, is there one word which may serve as a rule of practice for all one's life? The master said, is not reciprocity such a word? What you do not want done to yourself, do not do to others. Number 25. The master said, in my dealings with men, whose evil do I blame, whose goodness do I praise, beyond what is proper? If I do sometimes exceed it in praise, there must be ground for it in my examination of the individual. This people supplied the ground why the 3 dynasties pursued the path of straightforwardness.
All right. 1523. The master said, a junzi does not promote someone because of what he said, nor does he reject his words because of who he is. 1524. Zigong asked, is there any one word that can be practiced throughout your entire life? The master said, it must be reciprocity. What I do not wish others to do to me, I do not wish to do to others. 1525. The master said, in my dealings with people, whom do I disparage? Whom do I praise? If I praise someone, I have examined him already. He is one of those who straightforwardly acts in accordance with the Tao of the ancient dynasties, 3 ancient dynasties, Xia, Sheng, and Zhou.
Thank you, Amon. I think this one could be, we already discussed, right? So 23, sounds like Confucius want to separate, right? Don't judge people based on the word, and don't ignore somebody's word because I don't like this person. I think that's what I mean. But again, I think 25, right? Confucius get more clear on how to judge, how to blame on somebody, how to praise somebody. He said, you also shi, all right? Basics means he need to test. You need to test his, hold on. He need to, you need to examine, right? He used the word shi, okay? Chinese word shi. He need to examine and see whether or not his behavior according to the 3 ancient dynasty, the teaching of ancient teaching. And I want to talk about 24. Is this one, Confucius used the word, right? Reciprocity. Okay, this word in Chinese, if you, let me enlarge it, you can see this word, it means like mind. Okay, so basics, this word called su in today's meaning is pardon, but I believe Leggy make a translation as reciprocity. I think that's a very good translation. Basics, we talk about what I do not wish others to do on me, and I do not wish to do others. So that's kind of golden rule on this one. So we talk about what's the meaning of justice in Confucius. Sometimes I feel this word su could be very close to the, not the meaning of justice, probably close to the meaning of what we need to do to become a just person. So that's another word close to justice. And this word reciprocity is important concept in Confucius teaching. Confucius talked about this concept many times, but I do the word search. This word "shu," or you want to translate as reciprocity, it only appears twice. But this concept has been talking about many times. So I think this concept is important and that could be universal because around this world, all people from different culture all have this kind of concept. And the Chinese word "su" could be best to represent this concept. And if you want to call it the might of justice, there may not be the bad way to think about it. Yeah, I'll stop here and Amon.
Because you were talking about shu, I was just dropping it, the etymology of it, into the chat so that everyone could actually see. It is a very interesting word, and it is sparse in the Analects, but central to a lot of Confucian thought. The idea that reciprocity is what was conceived of as what kept the Confucian project from merely being a top-down dictatorial sort of educational system. It was not conceived of as something that I say you do, no questions. And yes, I'm actually quoting Miyagi from The Karate Kid, because it became very much that in practice over time. But this single concept was what was meant to act as a bulwark against that, or a mitigator, by making sure that, okay, if you say and they do, then you better be sure what you say is as if you were talking to a younger version of you, as if you were talking to yourself, as if like-hearted. That's what shu actually means in the etymological terms. As far as the rest of it, yeah, it's a rehashing. Probably the most interesting is 1525, where he says, who do I disparage? Who do I praise? He hasn't been shy about disparaging or praising people through the, well, maybe a little shyer about praising people through the Analects. Very few people sort of are elevated enough to merit his praise, but there have been some, absolutely. But disparage? I wonder what his meaning is, because he doesn't seem too veiled in his critique and criticism of the G family, just to name one off the top of my head. But I'm wondering what version of disparagement would raise to Confucius' level of, oh, you've gone too far. That's just being disparaging. That he sees what he's doing as an honest critique, an honest truth about someone. And I think this goes back to that reciprocity and what we talked about a few weeks ago about not punching down. If you're talking about somebody and you're slighting them for their faults, you best be doing it to correct their faults and actually have a belief and expectation that they're going to be a better person. Many of his students sort of feel that whip. But if you're just down talking somebody because you believe them to be beneath you, lesser than, that's where I think he gets off the train and says, that's a bridge too far. That's just being disparaging and not practicing shu. You wouldn't want somebody who is your superior castigating you in that fashion.
Okay, we'll open it up for comments from here. Anybody has anything that they would like to share on number 23, 24, or 25? How about Quan.
Here I would like to put things in perspective within the politics at court in ancient China, and I would say even during the imperial era. Because in 23, the Junzi does not raise up a man because of his words and does not discard words because of the man. A lot of things happen in ancient China because of words, precisely. Okay, one of the highest quality at court in life in general was to be capable to say things in a pertinent manner with the appropriate words, and a lot of people succeeded because they were the masters of words, either spoken or written. Let's not forget that the imperial exam was about written words, okay, about how the words were combined in an appropriate ways and how the calligraphy was nice to look at. So here I would say that it's true that a gentleman try not to raise up a man just because of his words, but in reality, let's put a lot of nuance here, and does not discard words because of the man. Here it means that if someone has a bad reputation, for example, and well, that person having a bad reputation can sometimes say very brilliant things or propose policies would be outstanding for the state if we judge the man just for what he said and not because of his reputation. So there are a lot of paragraphs in the Analects about words, and not to be too mesmerized by words. But here I would say that let's not be too mesmerized precisely by those paragraphs, because the written words and the spoken words play an immense, if not Leviathanesque, role in ancient China, and I would say even in China nowadays. And that's all.
Mark.
I thought that, Quan, you might bring in Plato's Laches here, or I know, Jason, you've cited Plato's Laches on courage, where he makes a lot of the distinction between words and deeds. So I'm wondering if it's not by someone's words that they will be lifted up or criticized, whether it's more by their deeds. And I just wanted to mention that 1524 has always been very close to my heart, and I feel really honored to be able to read it in context right now, because in my years of teaching world religions, I always introduce it and use it as the basis for a discussion of what is sometimes called the golden rule, and contrast the positive formulations, do to others what you want them to do to you, that is more characteristic of the Gospels, and the negative formulation, don't do to others what you don't want them to do to you, which you can see here and is also found among the Rabbi Hillel's sayings in the Talmud. And the Islamic saying, desire for your brother that which you desire for yourself, is a little bit different. And I just wanted to mention how nice it was to see those here. And let's see, did I ask a question?
Jason.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So about language. Okay, the only thing I want to say is here, and the next section, 26, 27, and 28, we will see more clear, right? Confucius, if you remember before, Confucius always want us to be his disciple, okay? be very, very careful about what you said, right? And you'd better shut up if you're not very sure, okay? If you don't know how to say, you'd better quiet, okay? You never speak too much. If too much will be worse than too little, okay? Not enough, okay? So that's a Confucius treat away. But in another way, Confucius don't want people. Confucius is judgmental. He always want to judge other people. That's I read it. But he doesn't want to judge other people by the word that people say. He wants judge by the behavior, his intention. What's your mind? Okay, I think that's a Confucius want to do. And I think the next set will be careful. That's why in 23, Confucius said, don't use, Junzi does not promote or raise someone because of what he said. And nor does he reject one's word because of who he is, right? So I think he doesn't want to judge people by the words, okay? But he, in another way, he wants everyone to speak carefully.
Come on.
Just a rapid reminder that 15.24 would be the silver rule, and the golden rule, that do unto others what you wish to be done unto yourself, is at 6.30. Okay, so the two are separated by many books. And there's one also that I don't remember the number, but that you would answer resentment with straightforwardness. I think it was in 14.34, I think. And those three together are very interesting because you have at 6.30, the golden rule, at 15.24, the silver rule. And between the two, there's no name for that, but I would call it the common sense rule, okay? If someone is mean to you, you don't have to give the other cheek, but just be straightforward. And you would answer justice with justice, but you would answer to meanness with straightforwardness, which was the content of 14.34, if I remember. So I just want to mention the deep interrelation for me of those three paragraphs. That's all.
Any other comments? Mark?
I appreciate also what Jason, you were saying about judging and not judging by words. Sometimes it seems like all we can do is use our words, and that might be the action that is called for. I'm thinking about that passage a few chapters back where there was, I think, a massacre of either a brother or a cousin, and Confucius asked, I don't know if it was the prince or whoever, do you want me to go and speak to such and such a person? And what did he say? Yes, I want you to go and, or I don't want you to go and speak to them. Does anyone remember that one?
Nope.
Yes, I think I actually know what you're talking about. When Confucius was asking for permission, basically to bring somebody before the ministers, and he said, go talk to the other ministers. Is that the chapter you're referring to?
I think so. It might be 11, 12 to 15. Okay. Yeah, you said you were. Someone got killed in a coup.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's about the assassination of the Duke of Qi. And Confucius reported to the Duke of Lu, but the Duke of Lu asked him to talk to the grandees, and he talked to the grandees according to ritual. I think it's that passage, right?
Yeah. So sometimes what we do is what we say, and what we say is what we do.
I'm very grateful, Mark, that you bring that, okay? Because a lot of things that we do in life pass by the written words and by the spoken words, okay? And 5 minutes ago, I was speaking of the fact that Chinese civilization during the monarchy period, okay, which is the period of 4,000 years, a lot of things has been accomplished because of the right word has been spoken at the right moment, or the right words have been written and given to the right person at the right moment. And I think it's still the case nowadays. So I am definitely part of those people who think that speaking is action.
Okay, shall we go on to the next? Actually, go ahead. Shrivinda,
Yes.
if I said your name correctly.
Hi, this is Vidya. Yes, you can call me Vidya. I had that question that to Kwan and for other people who can also answer is that, sometimes words are actions, but if words are not like followed through with actions, those words do not hold for long. So I don't want to agree with that until it is supported by action. The words are supported by action.
I think that you completed my thought, Srividya, because powerful words would provoke the achievement of major endeavors. And there are plenty of practical examples in ancient China and in modern China.
Well, that's a good discussion, but let's put this way, Confucius seems to disagree on this point of view. He wants to separate the word and the action.
But I have a challenge for you, Jason.
Okay, I would talk about what Confucius say. We are not talking
about... I'm talking about what Confucius was saying. Yeah. When he was speaking with Yan Hui, for example, his favorite disciple, he was always ecstatic because of the right words by Yan Hui. Okay, so here it's not the words which is the problem. Is it the right words or the wrong words?
Let me have a rebuttal on this. Okay, so put this way, he judged Yan Hui still by Yan Hui's act. He was poor and he was happy, and for this reason, his word is right. Confucius appreciates, not because his word, then Confucius will say Yan Hui is right. Because you have act rightly first, then your word will become meaningful. I think that's Confucius' point. That's my point. That's Confucius' point.
I understand what you said, but it is, of course, it's impossible to say that actions in terms of non-words are not important. Of course, they are important. But what I want to say is that let's not be too mesmerized by those paragraphs going against words, because in history, in real history, either at Confucius' time or not in Confucius' time, words have been so important in China or anywhere in the world. And I stop here. I think we understand each other.
I agree on that. Words is important. I just said what Confucius did. And of course, we don't know what he did.
Yeah.
Okay, with that, would we like to move on to 26, 27, and 28 in order to get to number 31 by this evening?
Okay, 15.26. The master said, in my time, there were still recorders who left what they did not know blank, and men with horses who lent them to others to drive. Now they are none. 15.27, the master said, crafty speech disrupt virtue, impatience in small matters disrupt great plans. 15.28, the master said, if the masses hate someone, one must investigate the case. If the masses love someone, one must investigate the case.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to read their version? If not, I can go and read the version I have. Okay. The master said, even in my early days, a historiographer, sorry about that, would leave a blank in his text, and he who had a horse would lend him to another to ride. Now, alas, there are no such things. 27, the master said, specious words confound virtue. Want of forbearance in small matters confounds great plans. 28, the master said, when the multitude hate a man, it is necessary to examine into the case. When the multitude like a man, it is necessary to examine into the case.
All right. 1526. The master said, in my time, scribes would leave spaces for what they were not sure about, and people would lend horses to others to ride. Now there are none. 27, the master said, crafty language disrupts virtue. Impatience in small matters disrupts great plans. 28, the master said, if everyone hates someone, you must investigate further. If everyone likes someone, you must investigate further.
Okay, thank you, Amon. Okay, so yeah, let's go backward. Okay, 28, I think that's Confucius judging, right? So you need to, but judging by himself, but not by what other people said. So you need to cha, which is, I translate as investigate. In the before, I think he talking about in the 25, he talking about somebody blame on someone, whom shall I disparage? Whom do I praise? You must examine, right? So it's 试, like test. And here he talk about you need to investigate. So you need to do further research to decide, not just listen to other people. 26, I think that's very common, right? Sounds like old people, like my father said, when I was young, and then we always go to my neighbor's house to pray. Not like today, you even don't know your neighbor, this kind of word. 27, I think this one is very famous saying in Chinese today, especially the last part. Impatience in small matters disrupts great plan. And it compared with impatient in small matter as crafty language, right? So the small talk, beautiful, skillful language will disrupt the virtue, which compare with great plan. So he put two things as a parallel, right? Some impatience and crafty language seems like a small defect, but turn out will disrupt or destroy the big thing, which is virtue or great plan. That's Confucius want to say. Okay, stop here, and Amon, please.
Yeah, thank you, Jason. I will just say I was giggling because when you were talking about 26 in my time, it felt like very Simpson-esque. Back in my day, it's the hackneyed expression of nostalgia. And I guess that this would have been in my time, but I like what he's saying. Scribes would leave spaces for what they were not sure about. That's a really interesting image when you remember that records were kept traditionally on bamboo slats that were then laced together and rolled into large scrolls. And so if you were writing in these strips, leaving a space for what you were unsure about literally meant, a blank section in a text. Why? Because you could immediately unroll a text, see the blank spot and go, oh, I meant to come back there. And after you'd studied, you'd be able to do that. His expression here is something I feel very strongly with my students on a regular basis when they just want to get it turned in. I see the assignments come in and you can tell they haven't done the reading. They haven't done this. They haven't done it right. They just wanted to get it done. And so being quick about it feels like it will accomplish something instead of now you've got to do it over, which is what a lot of them have had to hear a whole lot of times this quarter. The same thing when he's saying they used to leave these spaces. They could come back. There was no delete button on those bamboo strips. There wasn't an eraser for the pencil. What you were going to write was going to stay. So you better be damn sure about it. And so if you weren't, you gave yourself that clemency, as it were, that breathing room. Now there are none. Just like there's nobody who will loan you a horse, people are not as friendly. People are also not as interested in meticulous attention to detail. That's his complaint back in his day. And it's probably the consummate complaint of anyone who's ever dealt with young people all the world over. Crafty language disrupts virtue. I can't help but every time read this feel like there's a little bit of a dig at those who would say, here's how you can develop And if it rings too crafty, too sort of, if it sounds too good to be true, then maybe it is, I think is what that's getting at. Same thing, impatience in small matters disrupts great plans. Don't sweat the small stuff, except I've always said sweating the small stuff, that's the only stuff you can change. Don't sweat the big stuff. Confucius and I disagree. If everyone hates someone, you must investigate further. If everyone likes someone, you must invest. If there's a unanimous vote, something's wrong, because never will you get 100% consensus from any group of more than two.
Thank you, Amon. One thing I'd like to mention here is 27, Confucius to talk about crafty language. But on other place, book 1, book 5, another thing Confucius like to associate with crafty language, which is pretentious expression, 巧言令色. Okay. Confucius like to use this word to describe a small man because their language is crafty, their facial expression is pretentious or pleasing, flattering. Okay, so Confucius doesn't like this kind of language and the facial expression. That's I had to say. Then okay, that's open to discussion.
So if anybody has anything to say about number 26, 27, or 28, go ahead and feel free to share your thoughts. Go ahead, Mark.
I'm not sure if I heard you. Did you say the word was da for the crafty language or the specious word?
It's being translated as virtue. It's the same word as in Dao, the Jing.
Ah, okay. And is that the word used in 27 for virtue? But what's the word used for crafty words?
Qiao. Qiao means skillful, crafty, neck, this kind of word, small skill, beautiful, this kind of thing. That's the word. I don't know. Is there any other better word? It's a difficult word, qiao, right? Sometimes
No,
it's good.
crafty,
Sometimes
perfect.
yeah, sometimes means a lot of time we talk about is a good thing, right? But
Yeah.
well, again, that's misogyny, okay, because Chinese traditional use this word to describe the ladies.
It just reminds me of the way in which the sophists are characterized in so many of Plato's dialogues.
Yeah, that's right.
All they care about is using crafty language. They don't care about truth. They'll just try to persuade you of anything. They'll talk you out of your fortune if they can.
I think you are right. That probably if he is in Confucius is in Greek, and he probably will call this sophistry will disrupt the virtue. He probably will say that. So.
Yeah, and in the Gorgias, which is one of Plato's dialogue, the beautiful language or the crafty language was compared by Socrates to makeup. So just a rapprochement with the sexist attitude of the Confucianist.
Yeah, I think that's a very good comparison. Yeah, it's a makeup compared to makeup and medicine, right?
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
And then this one is compared to the crafty language, sophistry. Yeah, I think that's the match. Yeah.
And not to drive the point too far home, but Chao is actually part of the homonym for Chinese Chao Ke Li, which is chocolate.
Yeah. Well,
in general, it's a good word. Okay, this word in general, it's a good word. In today, yeah. in the tradition, it's always a good word associated with women. Okay, but in Confucius, it's bad word.
Yeah. Anyway, making chocolate is certainly a craft.
Well, you remember the chapter about never seeing anyone who could devote himself to his sexual urge, however we wanted to identify that, interpret it, as much as virtue. It's because a lot of those ministers must have been putting on a lot of makeup.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's 15.13. The master said, enough. I have yet to see a man who loved virtue as much as sex.
Jason, shall we go for the next section?
Yeah, let's go to the next section, to 31.
Okay, 31. You mean 29?
29, 30, and 31.
Okay. 15.29, the master said, a man can enlarge the Tao. It is not that the Tao enlarges a man. 15.30, the master said, to err is not and not change, that we may say is to err. 15.31, the master said, I have spent whole days without eating, whole nights without sleeping, in order to think. It was useless, not like study.
Would anybody else like to read their version? If not, I can go ahead and read ours. It is 29. The master said, a man can enlarge the principles which he
Yep.
followed.
Sorry, I just saw a hand go up right before you started.
Whose
I was
hand?
just going to read in case Joseph didn't want to this time.
Oh, okay. I mean, I can read. It's no problem.
I can't see it. I can only see you.
Okay. I can just do it really quickly. The master said, a man can enlarge the principles which he follows. Those principles do not enlarge the man. Number 30, the master said, to have faults and not to reform them, this indeed should be pronounced having faults. Number 31, the master said, I have been the whole day without eating and the whole night without sleeping, occupied with thinking. It was of no use. The better plan is to learn.
Okay. 1529. The master said, men should promote Tao. Tao won't promote men. 1530. The master said, not correcting one's mistakes is indeed the mistake. 1531. The master said, I've spent a whole day without eating, a whole night without sleeping in order to think. It was not beneficial. It would be better to learn.
Okay, thank you, Amon. I think these three are all important. 29. Hong, I think it means used as a verb. Okay, I consider as promote, make it high. So he talked about Tao, and pretty soon next year beginning we're going to read Tao Te Jing, which is a Taoist text compared to Confucius Analects in the same position. It's also talk about Tao. So you will see here very clear. Confucius will see Tao as a means. Okay, use the means to bring people to a different level. So his Confucius idea is human-centered philosophy. Taoism just on the other way. Tao is the end. The virtue is the means. You use this virtue, the means, to bring you to the Tao, which is the end. So the Tao is the whole world. So humans are small, and then Tao is big. We have to follow the Tao. So that's very different concept. Only this word, you can see Confucius' idea is very different. Or in a way, it's opposite to Taoism idea. 30s, I think this one is pretty simple. Only mistake is not correcting your mistake. So better explanation is in Mencius. Mencius talk about Zilu. People tell him Zilu has made some mistake. Zilu will be happy, okay, because he has a chance to correct it. Yeah. Same as Amon and I doing the translation. We are very happy for anyone to point out that's a mistake, and then we will be very happy to correct it. So 31, I do have a big question I keep thinking is, does Confucius think learning is more important than thinking? To the point, reduce the role of thinking. So I would like to quote another one in book 2:15. Master said, learning but not thinking make you lose what you have learned. Thinking but not learning is perilous. So sounds like Confucius think both are important, but I always feel Confucius and all the Confucian school focus a lot on learning and to the point reduce the importance of thinking. Again, that's my question. When I read Confucius, I always have this kind of feeling, and I would like to know how everyone think about this. Amon.
Thank you, Jason. I think I have an answer for you, but I will start by saying, once again, I feel attacked. Because these verses are very much anti-Taoism, that they could be almost slapped on a label of prescription anti-Taoism. Feeling a little Taoist, take 3 of these verses and call me in the morning. Men should promote the Tao, but the Tao's not going to do a damn thing for you. That's his argument. Ironically, I don't think he and the Taoists disagree on this. Taoists say the Tao treats all men like straw dogs, but you should still promote it. So, and I won't have this argument with the text here and now. I will agree that 1530 is axiomatic. Not correcting one's mistake is indeed the mistake. That's kind of, it's a tautology somewhat, but it's also a virtue, or a expression of a virtue, that ever the improving self should be the goal. I don't want to say that feels very attacking, but 31 is very much an attack, because many Taoists fast. So do many Buddhists. So do many other religions throughout the world. Fasting is considered a quintessential practice for gaining clarity, for clarity of mind. And Confucius bats it down with one swift, I spent a whole day without eating and a whole night without sleeping. 2 types of fasting, both things that you'll see prevalently, that you give these up and you do it so that you can remain in contemplation. This is actually Confucius' argument against too much devotion to meditation. I think that I have spent a whole day and I've spent a whole night in order to think, but I didn't spend that time learning. And that is his real jibe, or his real attack here, is that doing this in excess, spending this much time that you neglect the basis of your human body in order to gain some mystical enlightenment, it's not the way that it's going to happen. You do need to think, you do need to reflect, you do need to meditate, but then you need to get back to the books. You need to actually get material in there to think about, to reflect on, because if you're just taking away and not accruing, then you won't have anything worth thinking about. That's his real argument there. This is an argument for accruing more in the realm of knowledge, whereas the Taoist argument is every day in obtaining the Tao, less and less, something's removed. And so that's where I see 31 as a pretty unveiled attack. Yes, I have feelings about this, but I do think it's clever, and I do think it's interesting to see there's not as much space between these two as might be at first blush. I think they'd agree more than they disagree on some things.
So, Quan.
Okay, so once again, I think that those 3 are together, because I would like to start with the 29, okay? And I will start with the interpretation with Professor Eno, because I think that he has something there. In the explanation of the fact that a man can enlarge the Tao, it is not that the Tao enlarges a man. Here we have a judgment by Confucius that I think that Professor Eno understood perfectly, because his comment about this is, this passage makes best sense when enlarge a man is taken in the sense of raising his rank or his wealth. And I think that it's a good play of words, because let's not forget that once again, the upper trigram, the lower trigram. And in Confucianism, it is clear that there is nothing wrong to enjoy the lower trigram, okay, to have sex, to have good food, to have fancy clothes, but at the condition that you get those stuff in a correct manner and not by using devious means to get to wealth and power. So a man can enlarge the Tao, meaning that, of course, he can go on his epistemological development, he can uplift his understanding of reality and etc. But it is not that the Tao enlarges a man. While in reality, in ancient China and even in China nowadays, both are not mutually exclusive. A man can go on the epistemological development, and because of that epistemological development and his education, he gets some skills and some character and some capacity to be in right relation with others, and he might get to wealth and power, and there's nothing wrong in that as long as he's do it in a correct manner. I think that most of you know that, but I take the occasion to make the distinction. The two Chinese words that are translated as face in English are either mianzi or lian. Okay, so mianzi in Chinese is about your face, but it's about more your face as a reflection of your wealth and your power and your relations. And lian is also your face, but it's your face more about your reputation, your epistemological development, your character. So if I want to say things in a synthetic manner for 15.29, is that you can have the two faces, the mianzi and the lian, the lower trigram and the upper trigram. And there's nothing wrong for that, because Confucianism promotes the two faces as long as the face of the upper trigram of the lian is present. I stop here.
Thank you, Juan. Does anybody else have anything they would like to share around either 29, 30, or 31? We're actually, at this point, we'll open it up to general comments at this point.
Okay, and thanks everyone for enriching these sayings in so many different ways. I think, Amon, you were trying to describe, I think, is it 1530? Not to mend one's ways when one has erred is to err indeed. And I think one way to describe it is kind of like a paradox, almost like the liar's paradox. If you are erring, but you're not looking at it, you're turning away, then yes, it's an error. And at the moment you shed light on it, it stops being an error. So it kind of flips that way. And I was also very surprised by 31. I don't think I was in the group when you read 215, Jason, which you cited. And you were trying to argue, I think rightly, that it has to be in a sense that both thinking and learning are valued. It seems like in 215, thinking but not learning is perilous. So that seems more dangerous than learning but not make you lose what you have learned. Okay, well, you're not going to remember everything because you're learning so much. But the other, doing the thinking without the learning, as perilous, it might seem like that is the worst choice in some way.
Wait a minute. You're saying it's how is it more dangerous? Isn't one without the other? Like the idea, theory,
okay.
and the
What the Mark talking about? That's the two Chinese words. Okay. Let me share the screen here. So, book 2, chapter 15, right? 思而不学则罔. Okay, 罔 means you lost, you confused. But the thinking without learning, you die. Die is a serious word. Okay, perilous, dangerous. Okay, you are in trouble. This kind of meaning. So only compare these two words. One is more serious than the other. So he probably will like you. Well, if these words would be learn without thinking, but the serious problem would be thinking without learning. So, and Confucius using the word eager to learn how many times, and he only talk about only 3 people equal to learn: himself, Yan Hui, another I forget, dead already. So only 3 people equal to learn. That's the highest virtue you want to achieve. So that's why I pose this question. I always think Confucius focused too much on learning to the point people start to reduce or ignore the importance of thinking. That's just my view, but I consider that's a question I'd like to ask.
Juan.
I would say that I would like to keep on the subject of introduced by Mark and Jason, because I think it's a big subject. Learning can be divided in many things. Okay, what is learning precisely? Because learning, of course, is to learn what has been done by others before you. So, and the other thing is thinking. But I would like to, and thinking is a very broad word too. I would like to replace thinking with imagination, or to imagine. Okay, imagining. So imagining without learning can be dangerous, and that's for sure. If you imagine things that you did not have the minimum of what I would call the basic information about anything, you can go completely in all directions. But learning without imagining can be confusing, in the sense that you just accumulate what the others have created, but not being active in your learning. Okay, so I would think here is not the way to reconcile both sides is active learning, meaning that there is something that you would take from others, but by taking from others, you also use your imagination, and you also use a restructuration of what you are reading or what you are listening to, so that you would expand that capacity of learning. Okay, because learning is a too general word. So I would say taking from others and to imagine from what others are offering. So because learning is, let's not forget what he said, at 15 I devote myself to learning, but at 30 I take my stand, and at 40 I'm no more confused. So his own words at 2.4 can be used as a kind of development for what he means by learning. And after that, he would go to the upper trigram. At 50, I'm capable to hear the will of heaven, which would be a higher learning. After that, at 60, I'm capable to hear the will of heaven without complaining. And finally, I'm capable to do what I want without violating the universal law. So I would say that learning, because it's a very general word, can be refined by his own words at 2.4. And at 30, when I take my stand, I would put imagine there. Okay, it doesn't mean that you have to wait till 30 to use your imagination, but symbolically in your process of learning, it means that it's a higher degree of learning or active learning, if I have to say that in 2 words. And the more your learning becomes active, well, you will reach to creativity, to inventivity, to discovery. It's not only recording what others have discovered.
Does anybody else wish to comment about any of the passages that we had covered this evening? Opening it up for general comments.
I was just noticing that I don't think anyone else was mentioned in any of these. Any students, any princes, any diplomats.
I think there was one. I remember Zigong. So number 28 actually had caught my attention. I thought that was interesting what the master said. When the multitude hate a man, it is necessary to examine into the case. When the multitude like a man, it is necessary to examine into the case. Yeah, I mean, I think it's sometimes often important to question popular, ideas and thoughts and popular opinion, because I often find them it's almost you're questioning the mob at that particular moment in time. That's the form of wisdom. I think there's often times that there are groups that will often gang up on an individual or a group, and I think that is the exact time is to question what is going on and why is it being done in the first place. So I found that to be, to me, one of the more meaningful ones that we had covered here this evening.
Yeah, I think it all, what you were saying about people ganging up on somebody, it comes about from having some kind of, I don't know if you want to call it a mission or some kind of, agenda where everyone's following an agenda for a certain purpose. And if the individual does not agree with it, the rest following that agenda for whatever reason will gang up on them. And, it's, I think it's called a snitch, or, or whatever you might, one who does not conform to the, to the agenda is usually made outcast. So I think, is that what you're referring to?
I mean, it's a possibility. That's not the only case that it exists, where mob spirit is very dynamic. So mob spirit could be existing primarily because somebody just wants to see another person fall in order to tear somebody down. That quite often happens. Somebody is on top for something, and they tend to make a mistake, and so people will often make harsh judgments. And I think anytime people are making harsh judgments, that's the exact time to examine a case. But I think that what you used as an example is also if people aren't conforming to an agenda. That's another reason as to maybe examine a case as well, as to why aren't they conforming? What's the real reason? I mean, ultimately, that I mean, these are very short, succinct passages. I found that one to be particularly deep to me. I think that's that all too often we do not question popular opinion. Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, let me respond this one and before I leave. So I think that great that you mentioned about chapter 28, and this one is more important. We will talk about the same subject in book 17. We talk about more famous. Talk about he used the word 相悦, that means in the village and then everybody like you. Okay, everybody happy with you, so you are pleasant. So that's the seat of virtue. That's very famous word. Book 17, we will have more discussion on this because that's very important. If the person, everybody say, oh, he's a good guy, they must have some problem. So I think that's the Confucius idea here. Okay, thank you everyone, and then we finish book 15 and for next week. Any?
Yeah. So you were saying there is no form of justice in the Analects, correct?
Well, let's put it this way. I just talked about the concept of justice in the word of Confucius Analects. Okay. I don't see the word or talk about justice other than reciprocity and all talking about the word righteous. They all talking about based on what I need to do. Okay, what my mind need to set to become a just person, but not talking about the just system or the meaning of just. Just like Amon just explained, it basically is a structure already top-down hierarchy already set. You have to play in this role. So I don't see, at least that's my reading, I don't see the concept or Western concept of justice is in the ancient Chinese mind. That's my statement.
But you do see morality.
Morality, yes, definitely. That's very important, morality. Okay, that's put this way. A lot of concept we are talking about just I think Kwang also mentioned about the British England, the concept of justice is also top down in the ancient time, 13th century, but it evolved over today. But it's very difficult to compare today's concept of justice with ancient time, even with England, right? No, if compared to Chinese concept of justice, even more difficult. But I just want to say that's probably not Confucius' concern about justice. His concern is more on the virtue, about the person, you. And this you, the person is not a common people. It's more on the government officer, right? If you are the government officer, how to behave, how to do something, then this word will become good. And you can claim the Confucius means good, means justice. Of course, there can be justice word. A just society is a good word. That's no doubt about it. But the concept of justice is not on the table. That's put this way. Yeah.
And really quickly, is that because of the hierarchical structure?
I think the key Confucius probably assumed the ancient system, the feudal system is already a just system. So he didn't argue on why this one is good, or how to build a system, a just society. He already assumed the ancient time, the three dynasty, the Duke Zhou's system is a just system, right? And this society is a just society. So only thing we need to do is follow the ritual of Zhou, and then everything will be fine. So this one, you can argue Confucius had a very strong concept of justice, but you also can argue Confucius had no concept of justice, because his justice is already in his mind, which is ancient time society.
Yeah.
It's not something you need to build. It's already there. 500 years ago, that's there. Let's go back there. That's the good thing. So he's not going to argue, say, let's build a just society. He's talking about, let's go back to 500 years ago. That system is good.
Yeah, I would like to add something, Jason, with your permission.
Okay, please, yeah.
I would say that let's go back there, but not chronologically, okay? Let's go back there in the sense of at the source, in the timelessness where you can get the beauty, the goodness, and the truth. In the sense that, once again, I use many times that expression, but it's at the center of what I think, okay? The mythology of the Chinese ruling class is that it is not the system which is important. It is the moral quality of the man at the head of the system that will make the difference.
Yeah, that's
So,
a very good point. Yeah.
Okay, yes, that is the big thing. And the Westerners in antiquity, like Plato, like St. Augustine, they thought the same than the Chinese, okay? And here I'm being a little bit political, but since the West became more mercantilist with the